This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.
Hey, love. Do you have a friend in your life who is like really type A, really perfectionist, and you're constantly telling them to relax, but they just can't seem to? Yeah, I used to be that friend. So I was thinking about this the other day because I was catching up with a friend of mine, and we were, just randomly talking about past memories, past experiences that we've been through together. And one of the things that we talked about was the time that I yelled at her during a meditation session because she was not relaxing properly. I'll let you think on that for a second. But I'm glad we had this discussion and that this memory is brought back up, because I want to talk to you about self-care and how you're probably doing it wrong. So welcome to Confidently Cherished. My name is Keshia Rice. I am a dating coach and hypnotherapist. I help women overcome unhealthy generational patterns, learn discernment, learn boundaries, and create new, healthy, loving cycles and loving relationships. And there's been so much talk lately about self-care and self-love and the importance of rest and being in our soft girl era and all this stuff. And if you have been trying to do all the soft girl things and you're finding yourself still stressed out, if you have been trying to receive more and you're finding yourself still in relationships that aren't healthy, still in relationships with men who aren't giving, I want to explain to you where you're going wrong. And this is not shade or judgment or anything, because, again, my story with yelling at someone over not relaxing properly, like that was going to help them relax. I have been there, right? I am a recovering people pleaser. I am a recovering perfectionist. So I know what it's like to see a concept and hear that it's going to improve your life and be so determined to get it right, to do it the perfect way, that you end up taking all the purpose and passion out of it. So here's the thing that you need to know about self-care. Self-care is not about bubble baths and spa days and hair and all of that good stuff. And there's nothing wrong with those things. Those things can be a part of self-care, but they are not the self-care themselves. Here's what I mean by that. The purpose of self-care is to create a better you, to make future you all around better. So this is why people get hung up on the outside stuff, because it's easier, right? It is so much easier to go get your hair done and get your nails done than it is to do inner work. And also, it's more immediate. People are more likely to notice your haircut right away than they are to notice that you have been journaling every day. So this is why people often get caught up on the outside appearance stuff. Here's the thing about that outside appearance stuff. So all of that is good when the inside is in place. So, yes, getting a new hairstyle, getting a facial, spending a day at the spa, going to the gym and working out, all of those things can make you feel more confident. Buying new clothes. These things can make you feel more confident because other people see that you've leveled up your looks and you get compliments. You may feel better. And that can contribute to your happiness and peace. But it can only contribute when you already have a foundation of happiness and peace. So self-care involves solving for happy. I did an episode on how to solve for happy a while ago. I think last year. You'd have to dig some episodes to find it. But self-care is about doing the things that you need to do in order to be your best self, your happiest self, your calmest self, your most at peace self, your most beautiful self, inner beauty, and then secondarily outer beauty. And because of that, what people don't realize is that the core work of self-care is not exactly fun. In fact, it can be painful. It can be brutal because at the core of self-care is, first of all, those unhealthy patterns, right? The unhealthy patterns that we have in our family line, the generational curses, the patterns that we ourselves have developed over the years in order to help us survive different situations that we've encountered. It is understanding what are the patterns in our lives that are not healthy, that we no longer want to repeat, that we no longer want to continue. And then after you recognize those patterns, it is doing the work to heal from those. It is the inner child work. It is the journaling. It is the seeing a therapist or seeing a coach. It is changing your environment, which means cutting ties with people who are not healthy. It means putting yourself in better situations to set yourself up to succeed. I was telling a friend about how I seriously struggle with sugar cravings. Growing up, I was a fat kid. My dad has a sweet tooth. So I just grew up with candy and cookies, like constantly in the house and always having very easy access to them. So as an adult, one of the ways in which I do some self-care, do some inner work is not keeping that stuff in the house. And I don't deny myself sweets because I found that when I work really hard to deny myself, I just wanted more, right? But instead, I set myself up. I set my environment so that there aren't a lot of sweets in the house. They are very rarely in the house, which means that most of the time, if I really, really want chocolate, I have to want it badly enough to put on clothes, leave the house, and drive to the grocery store or gas station to get it. And if I really want it that badly, I will. No, I'll go do that. But oftentimes the thought of doing that, of having to, I work from home, so I can wear pajamas half my day. And the thought of having to change out of said pajamas and go somewhere just to get a candy bar, oftentimes that's enough for the sweet craving to lose its appeal. But it is having that awareness that in order for me to have better habits, have healthier habits, my environment had to change. I had to set up my environment to have easy access to healthy food and not quite as easy access to unhealthy stuff. So self-care is understanding, again, your unhealthy patterns. It is changing your environment. It is having an awareness of what it takes to truly get to the life that you want. This is another thing that I see so often. People say they want the great relationship, in my case, as a dating coach, or they want the business. They no longer want to work for someone else. They want to be financially free, financially stable. They want to be healthier, but it's a constant want, and not doing. This is one of those things with femininity coaches that I see online. They talk so much about how you need to be the person. You need to embody who it is that you want to be, embody your ideal self. And I agree with that. That is the feminine energy. The feminine energy is being. It is remaining present. At the same time, as women, we have masculine energy as well. And the reason why we also have masculine energy is because the being goes hand in hand with doing. So it's not just a matter of thinking yourself as your ideal self, and going out into the world and pretending that you're already there. There's work that has to be done as well. So, for example, I can say that ideal me is a 8-figure business owner, right? And I can go out into the world and try to be that the best I can. So dress how I think an 8-figure business owner would dress. Talk the way I think an 8-figure business owner would talk. Just whatever I can think of, they'll be like, okay, the me who makes 10 million a year, this is how she looks, acts, and dresses. But that is not enough until I put some work behind it. Because, I make a living, but my business is definitely not making $10 million. I would have to put in some work and some strategy to grow it to that point, right? And that is the masculine energy. It goes hand in hand with feminine confidence. Because don't get me wrong, I truly believe that if that were a goal of mine, if I wanted to make $10 million, I could. And if I wanted that, I know that I can receive it. I know that I could stand in that persona as a woman who makes that kind of money. I could embody that. I have that feminine in place, but that feminine needs to be matched with my masculine energy of doing. And it's the same in dating and relationships, both within the relationship and without. Relationships thrive on polarity. So you have one person in the relationship who is the more feminine and the other person who is the more masculine. But even within yourself, if you are looking for your ideal person, if you're still looking for that cherished relationship, it is understanding that, yes, you have the feminine, you embody someone who can receive. You embody someone who can receive love, who can give love, who understands that she is worthy of love, who expects to be treated well, all of those things. But once you have that embodied, you also have to get out there and do some work. in order to meet your ideal man, you have to put yourself out there somehow, whether you're going out in person or whether you're doing online dating, and preferably you're doing both. You have to have great communication skills. You have to have good discernment, because you're most likely not going to marry the first person that you date. So you have to be able to handle the end of relationships. You have to be able to handle possibly being rejected. And while you're in the process of going out on dates, you need to be able to communicate your needs. You need to be able to accept if someone can't give you the things that you need and be willing to move on. So your feminine energy has to marry a certain level of masculine energy. And that is part of doing this work. That is part of self-care. Self-care involves accountability. It is understanding where you fall short. And it's not understanding that so that you can bash yourself, so that you can make yourself feel bad about yourself. But we can't fix what we don't acknowledge. So we can't create a better life for ourselves without understanding the reasons why we're falling short of that life to begin with. We can't create healthy, loving, romantic relationships without understanding our own part and why we don't currently have them. And I'm trying to be gentle with this, because so often I will hear women say things like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just these men that I attract are, they're narcissistic, or they're just emotionally unavailable, all these things. And it may be true, but oftentimes if you are attracting someone who's emotionally unavailable, or if you're staying in relationships with people who are emotionally unavailable, it's because a part of you is also emotionally unavailable as well. There's a part of you that still has fears about being fully committed to a relationship. Even if you aren't actively the problem in the relationships that you've been in, you're still a common denominator. So yes, you may have a history of being in relationships with people who are abusive or who take advantage of you. But what is it about you that remains in these relationships, that tolerates that behavior, that continues to put up with people who do these things? And again, this is not blame, but this is understanding that you have to identify those issues in order to heal them and fix them. Because we've all made mistakes, and we all have our things, right? We all have our things that stand in the way of us really living the life that we want to live. But just because it's been a thing for years doesn't mean that you can't heal it. Doesn't mean that you can't change it. Doesn't mean that you can't create a more beautiful life for yourself now than you had in the past. So just a reminder that self-care is deep. It requires work. And yes, I totally want you to treat yourself to the spa days and the haircuts, right? But at the same time, know that these things are icing on a cake. The true cake is about accountability, discernment, getting help, knowing your triggers, being willing to work on those, and changing the way that you show up. The ways that you show up for yourself, the ways that you show up for others, and the ways that you allow others to show up for you by changing your standards and your boundaries. So, as always, I'd love to know your thoughts on this episode and what you're doing to create more self-care in your life, true self-care, what you're doing to heal, and to hold yourself accountable. And if I can be a part of that, then I would love to work with you. I am currently accepting one-on-one coaching clients again. I was full for a while, so I had not mentioned that on this podcast, but you can find the link to work with me in the show notes. And also just let me know what you think about this episode. Screenshot it, tag me on Instagram. I am at Keshia Rice. And again, I would love to hear from you. So I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Make it a day of awesomeness. A day where you do one thing to make future you happy. And love you. Talk to you soon. Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have two things to say. One, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And two, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like by subscribing to this podcast so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And if you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.